Hello, my name's Emma and I'm the Education Officer for Westmill Sustainable Energy Trust. Thank you for choosing to use our video presentation. This first slide is really for anybody who's presenting this video. I just wanted to let you know that you can find associated documents on our website at this link. These include a lesson plan, a delivery guide. Now that will enable you to give children a little bit more detail and background and answer further questions. There's also some further points for discussion there as well. Worksheets, these can be printed off. There's a black and white version as well as a colour version, and there's also one that's fillable, so you can download it and save it and then have it filled on a laptop or tablet. And there's worksheet answers as well. On most slides that you will see that there are questions highlighted in orange. There are also some other questions that I'll ask throughout the presentation. Do please feel free to pause the presentation after any question. I'll try and leave a short gap so that children who are watching the presentation on their own have a chance to think about their answers. However, please pause it at any time that you feel it will be useful for children to deliberate or discuss their answers. There are also tasks throughout the presentation, and this is another opportunity to pause it and then give them an opportunity to fill in the worksheets that are associated with the presentation. But do please feel free to pause it at any time. So let's get started. Welcome to Lesson 3, The Story of Westmill. In this lesson, we're going to look a little bit more closely at the stories behind why the wind farm and solar array came about. We're going to look at how the community was and still is involved, and find out what a cooperative is. There are also some videos that give you a chance to see the site. So let's get started. We've already talked a little bit about global warming and climate change, and we've also talked about the fact that we are in a position to make positive changes that will lead to a sustainable future. But I wonder if you remember, what does the word sustainable mean? For something to be sustainable, it must be able to be maintained at a level that does not use up the world's resources or cause damage. So, thinking about that definition, I wonder if you think you're living your life in a sustainable way. Well, when you think about it, I'm sure you've been able to suggest some ways in which you're already living sustainably, and this could be anything from walking or riding a bike to school, to being vegan or vegetarian, or even just eating less meat, or growing your own food. In fact, there's lots of other ways in which you could already be living sustainably. We're going to look a little closer at some other people who think sustainable living is vital. Most of you will probably already be familiar with David Attenborough. And for some of you, programs like Blue Planet may have been your introduction to issues like plastic waste and global warming. The amazing documentaries he's been involved in throughout his life have also drawn our attention to things like loss of habitats and melting sea ice, as well as the plastic pollution that we're all very aware of now. David Attenborough is still working and making programs, and so it's amazing to think that he's actually in his 90s. Now, why do you think it's so important to him at his age to make this message about climate change so clear? Well, he's done a huge amount of travelling for his documentary making and work, and he cares about the planet and the wildlife and the plant life that it's home to. This has been his life's work, and he really wants future generations to be able to enjoy what he has. He also cares about leaving a legacy, being honest about the way things are, but also really wants to give people hope. And, importantly, inspire people to act now. At the other end of the age spectrum, Greta Thunberg has had a huge impact, using her voice not only to raise awareness of the climate crisis, but to hold those in positions of power to account. Most of you will have heard of School Strike for Climate, and many of you may even have been involved. We've seen her on the news at high-profile events, begging those in power to take action. She often appears very angry that governments have not already done more. So why do you think Greta is so passionate and is angry about the lack of action? Like David Attenborough, Greta is passionate about the planet, its plants and wildlife. However, she is understandably angry that there have been warning signs of man-made climate change for many decades, and yet so many governments and leaders have chosen to ignore it, deny it, or do too little.
Within the next decade or so, we are going to pass a number of tipping points, beyond which it's going to be very difficult to recover.
Reckless burning of fossil fuels, the destruction of the forests, pollution of the ocean. How is it possible that the most intellectual being that ever walked the planet is destroying its only home?
Since the 1970s, we lost 60% of vertebrate species. If we look at insects, we lost 80%. As we lose species, what we also lose is the capacity of the natural systems to really provide the services that allow us to function.
One of the consequences of living in great cities, in great masses, is that we are cut off from that natural world. If you lose that sense of wonder, you've lost one of the most important things in your life.
The human race produces more waste than it really should.
We only recycle 9% of all plastic. That means that unless it's been burnt, every single piece of plastic ever made still exists on our planet.
The crisis of biodiversity with climate change, it's interlocked with many other global crises that we are seeing. Migration and climate refugees, political crisis, and perhaps a moral crisis.
We've stolen our children's future, we're still stealing it, and we must get together now.
When I first started the school strike for the climate, I never would have imagined that it was going to be this big. It's over 100,000 children from all around the world.
The consumer has to be the one that forces everyone's hand to say, I will not buy from you unless you have a sustainability policy and a clear transparency on the whole supply chain of the product that I'm buying.
We're now seeing a real increase in the number of collaborations and partnerships, creating extraordinary coalitions and setting ambitious targets to get us on the right path in line with what the science is telling us.
Employees have a responsibility to demand a better value system from corporations, and that's one way to pressure leaders to take a stand and say that they're going to be committed to the environment.
It just comes down to all leaders of all organizations recognizing far-reaching implications for how this can truly help to have an impact in the world.
Never compromise. What you're doing today will have an impact on the planet for thousands and thousands of years.
There has been no species that has been remotely clever or ingenious than Homo sapiens. Let us live up to that name. We need wisdom to actually find the solution, and then courage to back it.
It can feel really scary and bleak to hear people talk about the challenges that we face. We're bombarded with news and information, some of which is true and some of which isn't. That's why it's so important that we explore further to find out the facts behind the things that we see and hear. It's also really important to emphasise that we, that is the human race, are in a really good position to make a difference, and a small voice can make big waves. Think about Greta Thunberg. So what positive actions do you think you can take in your day-to-day life to work towards combating climate change? I'm sure you've come up with lots of really good ideas. There are a lot of things that we can do, and we're going to take a closer look at some of these in Task 1. So let's have a go at Task 1, Small Changes. If you'd like to press pause to allow time to complete Task 1 on the worksheet, do so now. You can then press play to continue watching the presentation. So, we asked you to take a look at the images below and identify the small changes you and your families could make to lower your carbon emissions. We've done one as an example, but let's take a look at that together. The first thing is choosing low energy light bulbs. These can be expensive, but it can be done over a period of time. And then turning off lights and appliances when not in use. Now, we're all guilty, probably, of not doing that as much as we should, but it's an easy change to make. And then choosing a clean energy provider. Things like car sharing and using public transport when it's safe, or going by bike or walking, and even moving to electric vehicles if it's possible to do that. All these things can make a big difference. At home we can reuse where possible, reducing packaging, not buying so much, and then recycling, reducing waste and repairing what we can so we don't throw it away. We'll look at these things all in much more detail later on. Think about eating less meat, following a plant-based diet. These things are good for us too. Really importantly, not wasting food. And thinking about the food miles, where does our food come from? Has it had to be flown to us or come by boat? And then finally, not taking unnecessary flights. This might be more for the adults, people who have to work abroad. Sometimes, and we found this out during the lockdowns, we're actually able to have the meetings we need to have online. Consider train travel and using Skype or FaceTime or other mediums instead of meeting in person. How did you do?
You need to hurry up if you want to make it to school on time.
Yeah, let me just buy this one thing. This will make it so much easier to solve all the world's problems.
Well, the world definitely needs some fixing. Did you know that we're the first generation that can end poverty and the last one that can stop climate change?
Seriously?
Yep, apparently so.
You can't change the world with your nose in the papers, you know.
Exactly.
No running after new cases or mysteries now, okay? Straight to school.
Aye, aye, sir.
There's a good citizen. He knows how important it is to recycle used electronics for all the dangerous environmental pollutants.
Seems pretty obvious to me that he's stealing and not recycling.
You see, a good citizen.
Why steal from recycling bins just to recycle?
Well, broken phones and laptops have plenty of valuable parts that are reusable. So it isn't as worthless as you think.
It's still a little weird to pay for garbage. There's something not quite right here, and we need to find out what it is.
Remember, we promised your dad to...
Yeah, no new cases. But a little exploring can't hurt.
Is anyone there?
Did you know that 15 of the world's largest ships pollute more than all the world's cars put together?
That's insane. Who said that?
We're now precisely 20 hours late for school.
Sorry. Oh, wow, look at all the fishing boats.
The big fish trawlers you see can drain coasts for fish and can ruin entire ecosystems, which doesn't exactly make life easier for the local fishermen.
They burn garbage in the middle of the city?
Yeah, and more often than not, it's children or the poorest people who have to sort and burn the garbage, which can be really dangerous to their own health and the environment.
But can't anyone see what's going on here?
Oh yes, they can.
Good to see they're planting new trees at least.
Well, industrial farming has its downsides. Pesticides, overuse of water and heavy machinery can be tough on the local wildlife and can destroy both the soil and the livelihood of the locals.
I'm so sick of listening to bad news at work.
You don't think they'd find it suspicious that a young girl works at the factory?
Well, most of the world's poorest are women. Did you know that 62 million girls under 16 years are not in school? Women are also much more likely to end up in jobs with lower wages and unsafe working conditions.
package. It's for our most important client.
The most important client?
Yeah, you could say that.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
The most important client? We have to get in that box.
Nice shirt.
And then he said I was the only one who could treat the package with the care and dignity that it deserves.
I'll jump out and confront the client with everything we've experienced. Then you can add some hard facts or an inspiring quote.
We're the first generation that can...
Not yet! Aha! It's time to end all your...
Ah, there you are. There's a package here for you.
What? For me? Already? That was quick.
We're the first generation who can end poverty.
Hello.
You haven't got wrapped up in a new story, have you?
No, or yes, but I have to look into this right now.
Did you know that 62 of the world's richest people own as much as the poorest half of the world?
Same old, same old.
But there are ways to solve it. The UN Sustainable Development Goals are the world's common plan for how to end poverty, fight inequality, and tackle climate change by 2030.
All that by 2030?
Yes, it's ambitious, but we are the first generation that can actually end poverty, and the last generation with a chance to stand up against climate change. But it doesn't happen on its own. If the plan's going to work, we need to work together, and we need you to be with us. Are you with us?
It's an interesting video and definitely got me thinking about how I can be a more sustainable consumer. Now we're going to look at working together for sustainability and talk about cooperatives. Cooperatives, as the name implies, are built on the idea of cooperation and mutual benefit. So common goals may include fair working conditions, fair pay, fair pricing for the consumer, access to renewable energy, inclusivity, equality, and all sorts of other things. All members of a cooperative usually share these ideals, and to show that they have a stake or interest in what's going on, they're known as stakeholders. This means that they have a voice and a vote in what the cooperative does. So thinking about that, how is the structure different from non-cooperative businesses? So, instead of just being owned by shareholders whose investment is mainly financial, a cooperative is owned by a range of stakeholders, from the people who use the company's services, its employees, to those who run the co-op. Most importantly, everyone owns an equal portion of the business, and that means that all votes carry equal weight. Any profits are split within the stakeholders, reinvested in the company, or in some cases invested in the local community. In the last slide, I used the word fair a lot, and that's because cooperatives aim to promote fairer business practices. They want to run their businesses in a more sustainable way. Cooperative members are empowered to share their ideas and views. What methods do you think co-ops use to enable their members to have a say? One of the big things they do is hold meetings for members. These may be AGMs, annual general meetings, or more regular meetings. Many also use online forums and voting tools. I mentioned that in some way, stakeholders receive a share of the profits. Can you think of an example of a cooperative in your local area? If you're local to us, some of you may know the Wind or Solar Co-op at Westmill. But some will also know the cooperative group. You'll have seen these on the high street. These include food shops, travel, energy, healthcare, legal services, funeral services, and even schools. There are many other types of local cooperative, but here we're using the Mid-Counties Cooperative as a good example. They have a clear set of ethical values: democracy, so taking a vote and having your say; openness, the business being open about its success and also areas to improve, as well as any profits it makes. Equality, that everyone's vote is equal, that there are equal job opportunities, equal pay for equal work. And social responsibility, so having community interaction, aiming to reduce CO2, raising money for the local community and charities, and also being green pioneers. So how do you think you become a member of the Mid-Counties Cooperative, and what other benefits are available to members? Well, some of you may even already be members, but you can join online, and if you're between the ages of 16 and 25, you can join the Young Cooperative Network. Benefits include earning points when you shop, and these are converted into your share of the profits. As a Young Cooperative Network member, you also have a voice in your community.
Hi, I'm Rocky.
And I'm Ravi.
And we're cooperators. I'm a member of a cooperative school, which is owned and democratically controlled by its members. Stakeholders, people with an interest in the school such as parents, teachers, staff and members of the local community can join and be involved in the running of our school.
And the kids too. Our school is part of a family of cooperatives worldwide.
Cooperatives are one of the fastest growing parts of the UK's economy. 1 in 5 of the UK's population now belongs to a cooperative, from housing to food, banks to schools.
There's a co-op for everyone.
Let me tell you a bit more about the cooperative values and principles that our school shares with every other cooperative. We don't just learn about these in class, we try to put them into practice every day.
We all work together to make our school a great place for people to learn and work.
Cooperating with others can be much more enjoyable and rewarding than working alone. The members of our school share responsibility for what happens in it. Some students run a young cooperative and learn how businesses can operate in an ethical way.
Others get involved in community projects to make our area a better place to live. Our school cares for the environment by saving energy carefully and recycling rubbish, and buying food from local suppliers.
In the classroom, everyone tries to take responsibility for their own learning and to help others too. It's up to us to get the most out of our education, and our teachers work hard to help us do so. Cooperatives are democratically controlled. That means everyone has the right to help decide what is best for the school and have their ideas listened to. Because we are a cooperative, we have a say in the decisions that are made about our school.
So we should. It's our school.
Our members' forum is consulted when important changes are being considered.
We don't put up with bullying, and we make sure that our school is friendly for everyone.
Everyone is treated and rewarded equally. They all understand the value of their contribution.
Rewards and punishments are always given fairly.
We support each other, and we support other cooperatives too. We belong to the Schools Cooperative Society, a nationwide network of cooperative schools, and work together to improve the education system. Staff and students can meet with others to share ideas and experiences.
And we have links with other cooperative schools in different parts of the world. It's great to learn about how we are different, but we all believe in the same things.
Our students and parents like the fact that we are reliable and trustworthy, and so do our staff. Our cooperative means there will always be a great school for the young people in our community. Cooperative values and principles are at the heart of everything we do here. They are what make us a different sort of school. We believe that through education and cooperation, we can build a better future.
Not just for ourselves, but for young people all around the world.
At Westmill, we are known for our community-owned renewable energy projects, and also our 5 turbines that have become quite a landmark. Both Westmill Wind and Westmill Solar are cooperatives and have renewable energy at heart. They are owned by people in the local community and have also been able to put profits back into the local community. Having both wind and solar in one place has really raised the profile of the local area. But how do you think the wind and solar co-ops encourage visitors who want to learn about renewable energy, or RE as we call it? They do lots of things. Both projects have held open days and events, as well as publicising the projects online and through other media. They offer opportunities for adults and school groups to visit and benefit from guided tours to the wind farm and the solar array. And hopefully, if you haven't already been, you will be amongst them in the future. But the story of the Westmill site is an interesting one. Once upon a time it was an airfield, and due to its high flat position it was an ideal place to train pilots in what were called blind landings. These were landings in low visibility, stormy or windy conditions. It was also used to train air navigators. I wonder if you know why this type of training was necessary in the UK in the early 1940s. Sadly, this was due to the outbreak of World War II in 1939. Even after the war, it was used as a place for training pilots and paratroopers. I wonder if you know, when it was used as an airfield, what would have been erected so that pilots could see the direction of the wind? It's what's known as a windsock, and we'll talk a bit more about those in the next lesson. Having had its day as an airfield and being used by the military, it took quite a turn in the 1970s. Throughout the 1970s and 80s there were a number of free festivals all over the UK in venues that included Windsor Great Park, but also here at Westmill. Like festivals today, they were multi-day events with music and arts, and festival goers would camp out. Unlike today's festivals, they were free to enter. However, participants were expected to get involved in anything from providing entertainment to preparing and distributing food. Whilst there was an awareness and concern about climate change amongst those in power, a great deal of those who started to make lifestyle changes in response were part of the so-called counterculture. Those are the sort of people who might have gone to the free festivals. They were often looked down on and not always listened to. How do you think local people felt about these festivals? Unsurprisingly, there were very mixed feelings. Some people even got involved, whilst others disliked the disruption and noise it brought. It was not at all well organised as the festivals are now. Some people in Swindon area even still remember the festival apparently. And from what I've heard, it did have a tendency to get out of hand. In part, as a result of this, the site wasn't used for festivals for very long, and in 1976 it was returned to agriculture. The gentleman in the picture is Adam Twine, and he's been farming at Westmill since 1983. During his time there, he's changed much of the farm to organic. He's always been very concerned about environmental issues. He realised the value of the high open site, and in 1992 made his first application to build a wind farm. His perseverance was tested as the project took 16 years to deliver. Thankfully though, his persistence paid off and the wind farm opened in 2008. What challenges do you think Adam may have had to overcome on his journey? Well, there were a range of concerns from the local community. Some people with local businesses felt they might be negatively affected by the development. Some were concerned about the cost of electricity produced by the wind farm. Some people objected to how the wind turbines would look, and some were concerned about the noise. These objections did delay the planning permission. However, it was really important for local people's concerns to be heard, and for Adam and others involved to be able to answer their questions.
What's really exciting is when we come up here with actually adults and children both. The first word you hear is, wow!
So here we are at Westmill Wind Farm on the Oxfordshire-Wiltshire border. I farm here. This is our crop of barley at the back here, golden, blowing brightly in the breeze.
So I'm called Liz, this is Sue. Well, I'm sort of inevitably involved with the wind farm because my partner is Adam Twine and he set it up. It was crucial from our point of view that it should be a community-owned wind farm.
In the crop, there are 2,500 people who invested into the wind farm. It's not owned by me, the wind turbine's not owned by a large company, but by local people. It's the bit about the wind farm which is the most exciting bit to me.
Every year we have an open day so people can come and learn about the turbines.
So we're here today because we invested in these wind turbines about 4 years ago, and it's really nice to see them working. And today we've had the opportunity to go inside them and see them very close at hand.
I've seen them in the distance, but I've never sort of wandered round one or been quite as close.
Open days are crucial because there is so much unthinking resistance to wind farms. We get people here and the first thing they say is, they're not as noisy as I thought they were going to be. Everyone says that to me.
I thought people said they were noisy, but I mean, it's just incredibly quiet.
I think when they see them, they're so majestic, they're like sculpture, and I think that hopefully it's reassured a lot more people.
The wind farm generates about 12 gigawatt hours a year, which equates to an income of about £1 million a year. And that goes back to help pay for the wind farm, which cost about 8 million originally, so it's about an 8-year payback.
Westmill has 2,500 shareholders. They put in between 250 quid or £20,000 each. Average was £2,000 investment. And they would hope to get a return of 16%. That's what we had in our share offer. And at the moment, we're on track for doing that. So.
If you just follow me around to over here.
WESET stands for Westmill Sustainable Energy Trust, and we're a charity that was set up immediately that the co-op was formed, really. And the idea is that all our shareholders have agreed that we can take 0.5% of the income each year in order to dedicate it to encourage sustainability in our local area. And what that looks like is that we run a lot of education projects.
I think it's really good for the children to come and see what's around, see that they can get other forms of energy without draining too many resources.
Now, who wants to have a guess at how many houses each turbine can power? Yes.
60. Higher,
Or
a lot higher.
Each one of these turbines powers 500 houses, which is 2,500 total.
Solar group, if you want to gather around here.
We've got this fantastic team of student environmental educators who we've been working with in the local secondary school.
It's called an anemometer. Have any of you heard of one before?
It's a sort of cascaded learning.
Peter, that one's the one that's got meters per second. No, wait, I'm just showing them. No, swap them around.
So what's really exciting about that, from our point of view, is to see young people taking ownership of the place. We already have a sense of that some people feel these are their wind turbines. I just had a young girl come up to me just now and saying, that's the turbine my school named. Then there's a whole other stream which is really developing now, which is looking to see how we can offer possibilities in the local community in terms of what they might do about their building.
This is our local village hall, and we've just paid for insulation here. It's 300 square metres of loft insulation. So this has all been done through money we've generated through the wind turbines via WESET. The plan is that we'll use this as a base for sustainable energy surgeries, and we'll offer advice to local people and how they can save money through different sustainable energy solutions.
These wind turbines arrived just 3 years ago. I felt it was a bit like the hunting issue in rural communities. It just divides people. It's a challenge. It took a long time to get them up here. We were, I think, 12 years in planning nearly. You don't get any without upsetting people.
The day they first started putting up the turbines, we were just beside ourselves with excitement.
I mean, it's a complete roller coaster from the start to finish, and at any one time it might not have happened.
I think the things that we learn are always communicate, always be honest, Never misrepresent, just say it how it is and keep saying it how it is, and be prepared for a long haul.
It's investing in the community and investing in the future.
Being able to watch TV go on the computers just by using the wind. So I just think that's a really good idea.
I feel very proud, and the reason I do feel proud is because I have helped create that. I own a bit of that.
These turbines are like 5 hearts beating in our community, producing power for us all.
I hope you enjoyed our video and it gave a little bit more background to our story. It's amazing to think that only 2 cranes successfully erected the 5 turbines in just 8 days. We saw this event in the video as the sections were lowered onto large concrete foundations. But why do you think the turbines were delivered to the site in sections? Well, each turbine is around 50 metres in length, so would just be too bulky to transport in one unit. Wind turbines are huge structures and therefore they're manufactured and moved in sections. Even then, a single rotor blade needs an extra long flatbed lorry and a convoy, so an escort, to convey it by road safely. If you've ever seen this, it's quite an event. In the last lesson, if you remember, I also mentioned offshore wind, so that's turbines at sea. How do you think wind turbines are delivered and installed at sea? So just like onshore wind, they're delivered in sections, but by a specially designed ship, and this ship is called a sea jacking ship. Once it reaches the site, it's partially jacked out of the water and acts as a kind of platform for the parts and the cranes and the workers. The turbines are then lowered onto specially designed foundations. These foundations take into account the depths of the water and the type of ground underneath. The turbines themselves need to be at least 30 metres above sea level, and this is so that they're well clear of the action of the waves. You can learn more about the Westmill turbines by taking a site visit, but also we have a virtual tour online for you to do. It's not quite as good as being there, but it does give you a good feel for the site. Our 5 turbines stand proudly on the site and run east to west. This maximises their access to the wind. If you include the tips of the blades, they're about 81 metres tall, so that's from the base that we can see right up to the tip of a blade when it's extended above the turbine. They have 3 blades and each is 30 metres long, so you can see that the body of the turbine, the tower as it were, without the blades, is around about 50 metres tall. Each of the turbines was also named by local schools. You might like to do a bit of online sleuthing and find out what these names are. The turbines are very heavy, so how do you think they're kept securely in position? We caught a glimpse in the video. Deep concrete and steel foundations are laid before the construction, and the bottom section is mounted onto this. If you look at the feet of the children in the picture, you can see that there are black plastic covers. Now these little black plastic covers cover huge steel bolts that connect the two. Thinking about how they're made, I wonder if you can suggest why the towers are made from hollow and not solid sections. Most importantly, this reduces the weight of the materials and the structure, making it easier to move but also to construct and to secure. Secondly, the hollow tower provides space for ladders, and this gives engineers access to the working parts of the top so they can get up there for maintenance. In 2011, the turbines at Westmill were joined by over 20,000 solar panels. Excitingly, this was the UK's first community-owned solar array. But what does the word array mean? This term is used to describe many panels grouped together. An individual unit is called a photovoltaic cell, A panel is made up of multiple PV cells, and an array is made up of multiple panels. Unfortunately, to get the right panels for the site, we had to look as far as Taiwan. This did mean that the product miles were high. However, they were shipped in a consignment, which meant the ship was full of products, making the most of those miles. These product miles were part of what needed to be offset by the solar panels in their life producing clean energy. We're going to find out much more about how they're made and how they work in our lesson on solar power. So solar farms are often located in agricultural or rural areas, and they vary in size from 1 acre to over 100 acres. Ours sits on a site of 30 acres, and when seen from above looks pretty spectacular. The array actually consists of 21,620 panels, and these are mounted in 32 rows. Now, we've mentioned this before, but let's see if you remember. Each solar panel faces south. Why do you think this is? This is to ensure that they get the greatest exposure to the sun. They're also mounted at an optimum angle of 30 degrees to the horizontal. So what are the advantages of solar farms like the one at Westmill? In a way, the clue's in the name farm. Large numbers of panels can be grouped together in rows to create an array that generates enough electricity to service the needs of a large number of residential or commercial properties. The Westmill Wind and Solar Co-ops show that people and communities can really make things happen. As stakeholders, they've invested in something really positive and also benefit from affordable renewable energy. The project has also brought people who might otherwise not have met in the local community together. How do you think that people power and community action can be spread? There are many ways. It might be online or through programs about these sorts of projects. It might be with visits to sites like Westmill. But one of the best ways is through education and also discussion. You get more done working together. As we've said before, both cooperatives have chosen to use some of their profits to support local carbon cutting initiatives. As mentioned here, these include investing in solar panels at Watchfield Village Hall and also investing in an exciting project at Osney Lock Hydro, which is now up and running. There's actually a lesson about that later on. They've also invested in educational visits and hosted open days and sustainable energy fairs, as well as sustainable surgeries, giving independent advice to homeowners on ways to reduce their energy use. Why do you think involvement with the local community is so important to the cooperatives? Well, it makes people feel invested and proud, and it also raises awareness and makes people aware of the challenges that we face, but also what we can do about them. We think it's also really important to involve young people. Why do you think that is? Well, young people can contribute fresh and exciting ideas. Sustainable energy is an important part of a better future, and we hope that young people will be inspired and get involved now and in the future. You may have noticed in some of the previous photos that the solar array sits in what is at some times of year a wildflower meadow. Creating a thriving environment for wildlife is a wonderful side effect of creating renewable energy sites. As well as nesting birds and bees and butterflies, hares are often seen in the fields around the turbines. It's so important to encourage a range of plant life and animal species. This is called biodiversity. We'll look more at biodiversity in later lessons. In the summertime, the wildflower meadow is at its best and surrounds the solar array. What type of wildlife do you think this will attract? To be honest, it attracts all sorts, including different bee, butterfly and insect species, as well as bird life. These are all important contributors to a biodiverse ecosystem. At Westmill, there is still an element of management, as it is an organic farm. However, what is the word used for the act of ceasing or stopping managing a landscape so that it goes to scrubland and eventually woodland, creating natural habitats and encouraging indigenous or native wildlife to return? The word or term is rewilding. And because of its usage, it's not possible to do this on all land, but it is often possible to leave an area to go wild or to create a wildflower meadow. At the end of the day, every little helps. So I am part of WESET, or the Westmill Sustainable Energy Trust. And WESET was set up by the wind and solar co-ops to promote sustainable energy. We do this in the local area and at schools, and have hosted thousands of visitors, including adults and school children. This image shows the events of the 10-year celebrations at Westmill. On Saturday the 16th of June 2018, a very special event was held to celebrate 10 years of community-owned wind power. These are wonderful events and lots of people get involved. So why do you think we're so keen to get school groups to visit us at Westmill? Well, it kind of goes back to what I said about youth involvement. It's really so that new generations can learn about the benefits of renewable energy and pass it on. It's you and your generation who will keep this going, but also have new ideas and build bigger and better projects. We hope that in the future you will be able to visit and get involved, and most importantly share your ideas for the future with us. So, just to recap, let's have a go at task 2. If you would like to press pause to allow time to complete task 2, you can do so now. Then press play to continue watching the presentation. Using the words in the list below, fill in the gaps in the following sentences. In 2008, 5 wind turbines were constructed at the Westmill site. The turbines were made in Denmark and delivered to the site in sections. It took 8 days and 2 cranes to install the turbines. Each turbine is approximately 50 meters tall. Each one has 3 blades and each of these is 30 meters long. There are over 20,000 solar panels at Westmill. The panels are mounted in 32 rows and sit on a site of 30 acres. Each solar panel is mounted at an angle of 30 degrees facing south.
Well, we started as a group of people wanting to put up a community-owned wind farm because we wanted to be part of the energy solutions to fight climate change, not leave it to others. We believed we could do something, and we have. Ordinary people can do things. It was a bit nerve-wracking.
The meeting held in the local village was full of anti-wind, anti-everything. And at the end, 90% were in favour and the noisy 10% were against. So it was the noisiest lot, but the least number that were objecting to it.
And eventually got planning permission, which took ultimately 16 years. So you had to be quite dogged and determined.
And it was running in 2008, and we've been running since then. We'd seen in Denmark how successful wind farms have been because from the beginning they involved the local community in actually making things happen with wind energy. The locals, they're very proud now, although some of them were worried. They love what they see as sustainable energy in action.
First time we've come and look round and see what the investment is like, and it's amazing, isn't it? They make a very clean environment. I just feel excitement when I see them.
We take some of the money of our profits and we put it back to the local community through the Westmill Sustainable Energy Trust. And they have insulated the village hall, they've put solar panels on the roof of the local school, and it's really a win-win all round.
We have had thousands of children and adults coming to look at the turbines and learn more about renewable energy. Education from the age of 4 to 85, 95, why not?
Onshore wind is one of the cheapest forms of generation, not about renewables, about anything. So it's just frustrating that we're not doing more in the UK, having been a great leader, and really so we need to do something about.
My daughter's a shareholder and all of your cousins are shareholders as well. It reduces our reliance on fossil fuels and everything else.
I think the turbines are epic.
We realise that it may not be easy for you and your families or schools to visit us on site at the moment, but we'd love it if you had a look at our virtual tour online, and this can be found on our website at our visits page. We can also organise live guided tours for schools or family groups. So what have you learnt this lesson? Who began the movement School Strike for Climate? That was Greta Thunberg. A cooperative is a business owned by whom? It's owned by its members or its stakeholders. What was the site at Westmill used for between 1940 and 1972? It was used as an airfield. What is the name of the landowner and farmer who decided to build a wind farm at Westmill? His name is Adam Twine. How many wind turbines are at Westmill? We've got 5 wind turbines at the Westmill site. And finally, what word is used to describe many solar panels grouped together? That word is array. I'm sure you've done really well, and thank you for doing the lesson. I look forward to seeing you in lesson 4.